Hello, it's Illura here, and welcome back to the Sacred Gates Ascension podcast, a place to discuss how to evolve ourselves spiritually, heal ourselves skillfully, and connect with our higher selves in order to reduce suffering. Okay, so this podcast I wanted to do on the pros and the cons of rites and rituals when it comes to your own personal spiritual practice. So rites and rituals are things that we do during our practice or before we practice or at the end of our practice. And I guess the ones that come off the top of my head are the things that I have done in the past when I was practicing meditation or yoga or the kinds of rituals I used to do. So some of the things might be, lighting a candle, saying a prayer, lighting incense, setting up an altar, cleansing crystals. If you're more into the elements or Wicca, you might be opening up the 4 elements in the circle space that you're in, picking an affirmation card. So all of these things are kind of there as a way to help us connect to spirit. What I wanted to explore in this episode are the pros and the cons of the rites and rituals. I think it's in one of the Buddhist scriptures or a religious scripture where they say just to be aware. It's kind of like a warning, being careful of not getting too caught up in rites and rituals. So another version of getting caught up in rites and rituals can also be if you put all your focus into your guru or into a teacher, and you always are like the perpetual student. That is also getting caught up in rites and rituals. And things like, sometimes a teacher will really exploit their students. And if you're part of that relationship, then that's another example of getting caught up in rites and rituals. And getting caught up in anything means that we're getting taken away from what's really important. So the cons of rites and rituals in this context of spiritual practice and spiritual development and maintaining it as a practical practice is that if we get too caught up in all these external things, which all of these are, like a guru, a temple, an altar, a crystal, incense, positionings of all our beautiful things, these can all take us away. They can subtract from our spiritual practice if we're not aware of it or if we're not careful. And so we can find that we get so caught up in the external maintaining and sustaining of all these external elements that it detracts essentially from our internal spiritual experience, the development of understanding, the development of skill, the development of ability, building familiarity with our higher connections, with our spiritual self, our spiritual selves within. And that is something that can happen if you spend too much time projecting outside into these external aspects of what's become your practice. And it may be that, I guess it could be like there's a percentage, like maybe you spend, like 80% with the rites and rituals and 20% kind of the depth of what you go in. Or maybe you go like 99% externalized and you kind of just touch on 1%. Or maybe you kind of go 40% external and 60% within. So everyone over their lifetime of practice will have perhaps seasons of changes. So this is where I want to look at the pros of having rites and rituals, because there's a contrast, there's a flip side to everything. So the pros of having rites and rituals is that if you are a beginner at a specific practice, or a beginner in general within your journey of spiritual development, that rites and rituals can really help you get started. It's a crazy sound out there right now in the street. I'm trying not to laugh, but I keep hearing that sound. So the pros of rites and rituals, like I said, can help someone get within. It can help you go from external to internal. We often need that help. So for example, you can take Qigong and eventually you practice that more external form of Qigong and it becomes Neigong, which is the internal. So you go from external to internal. And that helps everybody. Like when you're learning how to do something for the first time, often we need very obvious directions. We need big, obvious movements, more like gross movements, gross because it's so obvious, gross motor. And then we become more refined and it becomes more fine, refined as we get smaller and smaller, and things become more internal. So the pros of having rites and rituals and something that helps us get ready for our practice can really help everybody, especially someone who's just starting out and needs some help, needs some kind of like props, like positive triggers that help us to get into that mode. And so I just wanted to outline then the pros and cons, and with the pros, as we looked at the cons of percentages of external to internal, the same can go for someone who needs those rites and rituals to go from external to internal. And slowly over time, I think a positive experience for any practitioner is to kind of do what's working, like make sure it's also all be honest in your practice, so you're always looking at whether what you're doing is skillful, whether it's really practical, whether you're really growing your abilities or not, because that's essentially what you want, isn't it? As a spiritual practitioner, we want to have abilities, and we want to have practical skills that we can bring into our everyday life. And if you really look at it, in what I observe is the real reason why we are all searching, while we're all practicing, it's really just to suffer less, to reduce our suffering day to day. Because let's face it, life isn't easy. Having a mind, having emotions, having a body, having a family, having a spouse, having a work, having illness, all these things, it's tough. And we're always suffering, really. When you really, really start to go within, you start to see that. And the more you notice that you're suffering and everyone else is suffering, the more compassion you have for yourself, for others, and the more you want to find a way to reduce that. So you want to look honestly at your practice to see whether that percentage of external to internal is working for you. So I just wanted to do an episode on that, to look at the pros and cons of rites and rituals, and how much are we using these external forms. Are they really helping, or are they hindering our connection to our higher self? Thanks for listening. And please, there's that crazy sound again, please share this video if you think someone else would like it, and please subscribe and hit the bell icon on this channel so that you can get more updates. If you'd like to check out the website, The Sacred Gates, we do have a website. We are a circle of teachers dedicated to the body-mind art called Teishara. We are lineage holders of that mind-body art, and it is an amazing path to walk, and it is basically a body-mind art that connects you to your higher self. That's it. www.thesacredgates.com. Bye for now. Ga 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 ga.